how many downloads of Jim and Bill It's Another Day podcast?
Today, the podcast show has fetched 400 million downloads since its start, and an average of 350,000 downloads per episode, about 3.9 million downloads per week.
Well, hello there. It's another day. I'm Jim Harrington.
And I am Bill Knight. How are you today, sir?
Hanging in there. It's another day, another dollar. Actually, in my case, another day, another $0.50, 25 cents.
You get a
maybe.
$0.50?
Maybe
God.
25 cents.
Yo, man, you get a $0.50, 25 cents
Yeah,
even.
it's amazing, isn't it? I was just listening to one of the talk shows out of Boston, and the big topic of conversation in this talk show is that Caroline Levitt came out and said that President Trump is not going to give a blanket amnesty to the January 6ers who were in jail. Mm-hmm. And he's all upset. And he's a big supporter of the president, but this is a disappointment. And I was thinking, I don't know how he can give a blanket amnesty, to be honest with you, without causing a lot of constitutional problems, and what he doesn't need to do in the beginning of his term is to cause a constitutional problem.
Well, let's be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I would say 95%, maybe 98% of the people were all good. Mm-hmm. But there's a couple that sat there and said, wow, there's stuff going on. Let's go a little bit over the fence.
Yeah.
And the ones that, you can walk to the fence, you can lean over the fence, but when you jump over and wallow in the mud, you jumped over and wallowed in the mud, and there are consequences. What those consequences are, I don't know. Now, what they've done to the January Sixers, blanketed, I mean, have they been charged, prosecuted, the whole nine yards, or were they just taken away and detained as, deplorable people like they were leopards?
For the longest time, a lot of them were just held without charges or without due process. But over time, they've been in jail. It'll be almost, 4 years that a lot of these people have been in jail, close to it. But, Bill,
there is a...
The thing I was going to say was that they don't have, I don't think they have anything to worry about, because I think he's already made it clear that the people that he feel that will put there, unjustly, they're going to be out.
Illegally.
He's going to let them go.
Yeah, now I do wonder this, and that is that when you are accused of a crime and you're locked up, you're talking about due process, there's a time period. At which point in time, all bets are off. In other words, what I'm saying is you've locked these people up for a long, long time, mm-hmm. and you've done nothing. This is like they're Vietnam prison camps where I'm sorry, but
you're supposed to have a speedy trial. You are supposed to have speedy justice.
Without that right, you know what you do? You sit there and unfortunately, you have to, in my mind, you take them all out and say, okay, you're free to go. Just keep in mind. Now, there were some people, mm-hmm. Just like you've seen protests by the left,
right,
when Floyd and the whole nine yards, that burned things down and stuff like that. They didn't burn things down. They didn't go and shoot anybody, but they were over the line, and they were rebel rousers, and they need to be held accountable for that. But the vast majority of people, yeah, they were there for a rally, and sure, the doors opened up and they walked in. To what extent, did they do anything wrong? Because they went after people that were just there in the crowd.
They made a good point when I was listening to this program, that during the Civil War, when there was real insurrection, when mm-hmm. half of the country left the other half of the country, at the end of the war, there was no charges of insurrection, and they were allowed to go home and repatriate. The only person to actually pay a consequence was the commandant of the Andersonville prison, which was, I forgot his name. I can see his face. He was a mean, evil SOB who kept those poor men in the worst conditions ever. Many of them died from disease mm-hmm. and starvation. And this guy he was abysmal. And he tried to plead, to beg the mercy of the court. They said no. And he actually, I think, was executed. But the rest of the men were allowed to put their guns and their weapons aside and take their horse, and if they had one, and go home, you know? And they're saying, now look at these guys. Most of them have done nothing. Trump did say if they did nothing, they'll be free, you know? But he wants to make sure that he doesn't let out any bad guys. The other guy who was doing the talk show said, was it Benjamin Franklin or Thomas Jefferson? I think it was Ben Franklin who said better to release 100 bad guys than to imprison one innocent man. And there's some truth to that, and that's very idealistic. But in our society, I don't know whether it's realistic, Bill. I think that they have an obligation. He has, as president. See, he can't come in and just start acting like there are no laws. No, and I don't think he plans to. I mean, he's trying to do the right thing, and from what I heard, he's gonna be fair about everything and everybody, and that's the way to do it. But you look at what they called I call it the January 6th incident, because I don't accept it was an insurrection. I agree.
But you sit there and you look at that situation, the coin could have been reversed. It could have been Trump winning at that time, and it was the Biden administration that got kicked out. And, there could have been Democrats there going, wait a minute, we think we won this election. So the role could have been reversed, and the same thing happened. What I'm saying is, the victor, to the victor goes all the praise. So the spoils. So I'm sitting there, the people that you're only on the wrong side when your side loses. Yeah, if your side wins, you're on the right side.
That's what they say, that the winner writes history.
So you know what you do with those people? You repatriotize them. You just sit there and say, okay.
Well, one caller made a good point. You just put an ankle bracelet on all of them, send them home so you can keep track on where they are, and the ones that you think deserve to come back, then you know where they are. If that's but I'll tell you what they don't do. Here's what, at the very least, if I were him, I would take them all out of that dump that they're in Washington, D.C., and put them in a comfortable, a much nicer environment.
Here's a question for you. The people that have been incarcerated, and you find out, well, they should have never been incarcerated. How long have they been incarcerated?
3.5 years. 3 years.
So they've lost pretty much everything that they owned.
Some have lost their families. Some have had deaths in the family of people they love they'll never see again.
Yeah. So how do you give them restitution for all of that?
Well, when it's proven they were done so unjustly, then the government's going to have to turn around and give them just that, restitution.
But the Democrats will fight that. You see,
the good news is they don't control Congress for the next 2 years.
Well, the interesting news is, if I have the
I have the story about Nancy Pelosi.
No, that's a different one. This one is 94% of the voters, 94%, and this is Democrats and Republicans. All voters believe that Trump won in a fair and just election.
Yeah.
So all these negative voices that you're hearing out there and protesting is 6% of the people. Is that what really voted for Kamala, was 6%? And they're making so damn much noise?
As we speak, there's an element of the left that is trying to steal some elections. Case in point, Christine Pelosi, the daughter of Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah, bragging about her stuff.
Yeah, who proves that apples don't fall far from the tree. She's been spending the last 3 weeks trying to flip elections to the Democratic side. Listen.
My life, my love is carrying ballots with my friends. I can't wait to get on the road again. I'm off to the Central Valley to cure ballots in California 13. Join me, mobilize.us/Team Pelosi.
Okay, here's what has got to stop, all right? It's been over 3 weeks, or it'll be 3 weeks tomorrow. No, is it a month tomorrow, Bill? 3
it's a
weeks. Anyway, it's been a long time since the election. She shouldn't be out there trying to find votes. When you find votes 3 weeks after the election, I would say that a lot of them are fraudulent and shouldn't be counted.
Well, here's the thing. What is curing ballots?
That means fixing it.
Yeah, these are ballots that were rejected. They didn't have a signature or anything like that. How do you cure something that is ineligible? You change it. Yeah, well, if it was an illegal ballot, what are you doing? Adding a real name to it? Victor Washing Machine. You didn't sign your. So can somebody sign Victor Washing Machine here, please? Well, okay, and it's cured. This is stupid. If the ballot was wrong, there is no going back. Whether it's whether it was a legitimate person or not, and that goes for Republicans too. If you're that damn dumb that you can't sit there and get something right when it's very simple there for you, probably doesn't need to be counted.
Hey,
and brings into question those counts. So yes.
Before we go any further, we forgot to do something. That's mention Right Side Coffee.
Wake up on the right side with Right Side Coffee.
Jim and Bill's Right Side Coffee. I think you have a cup in your hand right now.
Yes, I do.
Oh, you lucky man, you.
And you never waste Right Side Coffee. If you're sitting there, you get carried away in conversation, and the coffee gets cool.
Yes.
It is, even this coffee is good warmed over. Warmed over anything else sucks. This coffee has no suck to it. It's just good coffee.
I'm not trying to make false claims, but I even heard that it makes your hair grow. I'm just saying. Yeah. Hey, listen, try it,
I
will you?
spilled some on my foot, and now I got a hairy foot. But
hey, if you want to find out for yourself how good the coffee is, do yourself a favor. Go to rightsideshop.com, rightsideshop.com, and you'll see all of our stuff, our shirts and our sweatshirts, the very special Daddy's Home sweatshirt, T-shirt, and cup. They're available right there. And also you'll see our Right Side Coffee Medium Blend and Right Side Coffee Decaf. And we'd appreciate you trying it because it helps us out because we're looking to generate some revenue to promote our program. As you hear at the beginning of the show, we've done okay so far, without any promotion at all. I was looking at some of the stats over the weekend. We have a number of people, like I'm saying within the top 5 or 6 countries in the world who listen in Russia. I was surprised. You don't know how they found you, but there you are. And I thought that was kind of interesting. We have people in Africa, Ghana. Go ahead, Bill.
I was going to say, if we get 100 more listeners in Russia, we'll have to do some Right Side vodka.
Yes, and now bring Daddy home.
Daddy, stay home.
Yeah. Right Side vodka. I like that. It has a certain je ne sais quoi.
It'll keep you warm on a cold Siberian night.
Yeah. Isn't that the truth? Other things going on in the world today. I saw an interesting interview. Eric Prince is he's the founder of Blackwater, and they're the company. They're the security company around the world. They're like mercenaries. They're the high end. They're the kind of people that if you're a rich guy and you want to hire your own private security, make sure you are really safe. Those are the kind of guys that you hire, And anyway, he was on with Maria Bartiromo, and he was talking about the situation in the Ukraine, and he's a little concerned. Right. Listen to this.
Eric, thanks very much for being here. Your reaction to this week and these long-range missiles sparking Russia's response?
There's no good outcome to this war. It needs to de-escalate and be done. There's no chance that Ukraine is going to retake its land, the Donetsk, Luhansk, the areas in the east, certainly not the Crimea. It's been a fool's errand for the last year and a half, and all we're doing is wiping out the next generations of Ukrainian men, and Russian men for that matter. Imagine if there was this kind of border clash with Mexico, and there were Russian-provided weapons being fired inside the United States. There's no way we would tolerate that. This needs to be wound down soon, And I really hope President Trump can get on it literally from day one. I wish they could do pre-meetings, but even, the way the Democrats pulled the whole Russiagate nonsense in 2016, I'm sure the Trump administration is hesitant to have that level of contact, but they need to, because clearly Biden, not ready to run for president again, not mentally up to the job, and it's clearly Kamala Harris is not either up to the job. This needs to be brought to an end by adults. Enough.
So why was Biden doing what he did, authorizing these long-range missiles while he's almost out the door?
To me, it's like a drowning man grabbing at any rope that might be available to him, thinking that it might somehow push the Russians to play nicer or something. There is really no practical reason. The fact is, the Russians fired a ballistic missile that carried 9 warheads going Mach 9 that there was no means to shoot down. And even with non-nuclear, the kinetic force is enormous. And those could have just as easily, it was a sign, it was a reminder by the Russians, we can smack you anywhere with nukes, and maybe that's what's coming next. So this is not a game that needs to be played any longer. It is grossly irresponsible.
Eric Prince from Blackwater, the founder, former Navy SEAL officer, and he knows what he's talking about. The thing that scared me about that hypersonic, is it goes Mach 9, and it's at your doorstep before you know it was even launched. I mean,
now, let me ask you a question, though, because, I don't think you want to let them know, let Russia know that you can't knock down that missile. But then, because you don't want to show your weaknesses. Then I wonder, well, maybe we're saying that, letting them believe that, and we really do have something. Because remember, there was a big, massive rebuild with the military and technology, and Trump's going to continue that. Perhaps there is something out there that can thwart it, but we can't do it.
Well, we've had successful, quote, tests. We had one in July of a hypersonic missile. And they make it sound like that we're starting to maybe catch up. But I wonder, as do you, is this all a ruse on our part? We want to keep things a secret. Maybe we don't have a hypersonic missile. Maybe we have an ultrasonic deterrence that he doesn't know about or they don't know about, and we haven't used yet, that can actually blow them up before they're even launched.
There's all kinds of futuristic, what some people would call conspiracy stuff. If you were a Star Trekker, you probably remember they had the impulse engines, they had the ion engines, and they had warp drive. But the ion engines, I guess by their standards today would be pretty damn fast. Well, they were doing that stuff back in the 80s here, working on that, the 80s and 90s. And I only know that because a guy that I think you may have known in Pittsburgh and I worked with, his brother was on a team that was the exact thing they were working on.
I was reading about the new set of missiles rockets that are being used by SpaceX, and the most recent test had 66 motors in the rocket, 33 pairs. It was equivalent, I think they said, to 33 747 engines at full throttle. I mean, amazing. I also didn't realize that instead of using aluminum on the rockets, they're using stainless steel, because even though it's a little heavier, it's much more durable, and it actually is more, it's safer to use when you go through all of the different temperature changes, apparently. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I read that wrong, but I just thought it was kind of interesting. You see them come back, and they're all scorched from the re-entry. And then I think they must power wash them or something, and they reuse those same rockets again. And this
I'm sure the metallurgy of that, they've got it down to a science. They know the structural stress on it. They know what that rocket can take, that shell, the casing that you're talking about. So, I'm sure they can reuse it a lot of times. And the reason, you watch like the SpaceX thing going up and it looks like, boy, it's really fighting to get up. But you look at how huge that is, it's built for heavy lifting.
Like a skyscraper.
A smaller, lighter rocket.
Yeah.
Yeah. smaller, a lighter rocket with a big explosive, doesn't need that kind of thrust or strength to get up there. You got 14 pounds per square inch?
Yeah.
Or whatever it is on the surface of the Earth. I forget what it is.
People forget, Bill, what they're testing these rockets for.
Yeah, but as you go up, every 40 feet, it changes.
They're testing them to launch them to Mars.
Mm-hmm.
He's not looking to go to the moon. Been there, done that. They're looking to launch a rocket to Mars. That's why everything's as big as it is. But it's like watching, Bill, a skyscraper lift off. The Empire State Building going up.
You're getting through the atmosphere. Every 40 feet it changes. But when I say it changes, it gets lighter and lighter. And all of a sudden, boom, you punch through. Once you punch through and you're into free space, I don't think there is any resistance. Then you got that rocket. You can fire it once, and it gets you on a projectile. You're like a projectile just going.
We were talking about technology, which moves me to another topic I wanted to bring up today. A guy sent me a video, and like so many videos nowadays that are interesting, right? Whoever the middleman is along the way decides they want to put music behind it to make it dramatic. They have no sense of audio mixing, and the music is a distraction. It actually takes away from what you're trying to hear. So what I did is I went out and found similar audio in a similar interview with the same guy saying basically the same thing. The guy's name is Jeffrey Hinton. Now, you probably have never heard of Jeffrey Hinton. Jeffrey Hinton is considered the grandfather of AI. Back in the 70s and 80s, he started to, as a student, think about the possibilities. He worked on it with other people throughout the years, throughout the decades. Actually became a true expert in how to make AI work. He neuropaths and stuff. When you hear him talk, you would think he's talking about the human brain, but he's actually talking about artificial intelligence, and I guess how similar they are. And I want to play this for you. It's just about 4 minutes long, but it's an interview with this guy, and he actually left a project that Google had him on that he was leading because he's actually afraid that it's gone too far, and he's afraid about where it's going. Listen to this.
Joining us now to discuss Jeffrey Hinton. Jeffrey, thanks so much for joining us. So you left your job with Google in part because you say you want to focus solely on your concerns about AI. You've spoken out saying that AI could manipulate or possibly figure out a way to kill humans. How could it kill humans?
Well, eventually, if it gets to be much smarter than us, it'll be very good at manipulation because it will have learned that from us. And there are very few examples of a more intelligent thing being controlled by a less intelligent thing. And it knows how to program, so it'll figure out ways of getting around restrictions we put on it. It'll figure out ways of manipulating people to do what it wants.
So what do we do? Do we just need to pull the plug on it right now? Do we need to put in far more restrictions and backstops on this? How do we solve this problem?
It's not clear to me that we can solve this problem. I believe we should put a big effort into thinking about ways to solve the problem. I don't have a solution at present. I just want people to be aware that this is a really serious problem and we need to be thinking about it very hard. I don't think we can stop the progress. I didn't sign the petition saying we should stop working on AI because if people in America stopped, people in China wouldn't. It's very hard to verify whether people are doing it.
There have been some whistleblowers who have been warning about the dangers of AI over the past few years. One of them, Timnit Gebru, was forced out of Google for voicing his concerns. Looking back on it, do you wish that you had stood behind these whistleblowers more?
Timnit's actually a woman.
Oh, sorry.
So they were rather different concerns from mine. I think it's easier to voice concerns if you leave the company first. And their concerns aren't as existentially serious as the idea of these things getting more intelligent than us and taking over.
Steve Wozniak, one of the co-founders of Apple, is also speaking out about the dangers he fears will come from AI. Take a listen.
Now, AI is another more powerful tool, and it's going to be used by those people, for basically really evil purposes. And I hate to see technology being used that way. It shouldn't be, and probably some types of regulation are needed.
It sounds like you agree. What
I agree with that.
Yeah. What should that regulation look like?
I'm not an expert on how to do regulation. I'm just a scientist who suddenly realized that these things are getting smarter than us. And I want to sort of blow the whistle and say we should worry seriously about how we stop these things getting control over us. And it's going to be very hard. And I don't have the solutions. I wish I did.
Does there need to be a meeting of all of the tech groups and governments working on this, Google, China, whatever, and some sort of set of rules of the road? I mean, how do we even protect against bad actors or rogue nations harnessing AI?
So for some things, it's very hard, like them using AI for manipulating electorates or for fighting wars with robot soldiers. But for the existential threat of AI taking over, we're all in the same boat. It's bad for all of us. And so we might be able to get China and the US to agree on things like that. It's like nuclear weapons. If there's a nuclear war, we all lose. And it's the same if these things take over. So since we're all in the same boat, we should be able to get agreement between China and the US on things like that.
Do you think that tech companies will be the solution, or are they so invested in this financially, and also, let's be frank, in terms of power, that they're not going to be part of the solution here?
I think the tech companies are the people most likely to be able to see how to keep this stuff under control.
Jeffrey Hinton, thank you so much. Come back. We have more questions for you, and we appreciate your candor.
Jeffrey Hinton, he says there's a problem out there. He hasn't got an answer. He hasn't got an answer. And Bill, the thing that he said, which I thought was interesting, was he didn't sign a document, which essentially said we should limit the development of AI because he knew that China wouldn't. He knew that there are countries that will not sign it.
Well, I'd probably have a sick, twisted solution for it. But, with AI, if nothing's done, we use computers, which have AI, to control our military hardware and assets.
I know.
So if the AI goes, time to get rid of the carbon-based units, it could just sit there and turn all of our knowledge, our destructive power against us, and it would survive. Now, the twisted part here, there have been talks of implants using robotics, chips, AIs embedded into people. You could actually do that and probably do some kind of synthetic, neural network for computers. So in other words, they become a little bit like us. We become a little bit like them.
Yeah, the thing that I'm afraid of,
scary.
He even said it. They were already thinking around corners. They're thinking around us, and soon they will have solutions. Meaning, they will be able to manipulate us. They will have. He said they will have learned that from us. It's not like when you program a computer and it'll do one thing. The thing about AI is that you set it up so it starts to learn by itself. And even, for example, on a very small scale, if you have one of those home devices, that little hockey puck device, I don't want to say one because I have one within the range of my voice, but that little hockey puck, it, to a certain extent, learns too. It learns your name. It learns how often you talk to it. It may even decide, okay, he likes to ask questions about these teams. So
your phone, your computer learns from you. You might, whether you say something and there's a microphone built into it, or you go, Black Friday's coming up. I need to get a GameCube or or whatever those things are. The box where the gamers use.
Yeah, Xbox
macro switch. No, they're a macro switch or something like that for the streamers. Well, all of a sudden you say that or you type that search, and now the next time you turn on your computer, even while the time you're using it, all these things start popping up, and we call them cookies, but either way, it's it listening and taking your quest or your inquiry, your thoughts, and putting it into a sales pitch or a recommendation. So
I have. I've mentioned this before. I subscribe to Chat GPT because I was curious to find out what it does, and the scary thing about it is it can let's say I like to write scripts, so I like to get a second opinion. So I will put my work into the computer and say, what do you think? Do you have any suggestions? And it will come back within seconds. Within seconds, it will read it and have suggestions. And you think to yourself, they're talking about someday it'll be smarter than us. I don't know a human on this planet who can read a manuscript in seconds and then come up with suggestions. This is the scariness. You talk about them having control of our missile systems. I think you're right. I think they already have, to a certain extent, access to a lot of our defense systems. In the wrong hands, what the heck, can they do? We've already, a lot of us feel, I'm not going to say any company did anything, but a lot of us feel that certain elections were manipulated. Let's just say that.
Let's put it this way: there's an internet out there, right?
That's exactly. If you can hack,
so every computer is connected one way or another.
Right. So if you can hack
every computer,
right? Oh my God! I mean, the other thing is this: a lot of people leave their computers on all the time. Are those computers accessible through a back door to nefarious people? I mean, I know this is getting a little technical here, folks, but there's a lot of memory and a lot of computer power out there that is just
okay.
You don't know what it's doing.
Here's a question for you: how often do you get an update on your computer, your regular computer that you might leave on a week? You get at least a dozen, a half dozen at least. Anyway, all right. So you got a computer that you got kind of sitting idle. It's not turned on, and you're going, well, I'm gonna fire that one up. It hasn't been on the internet, and it doesn't have whatever reason. Or I'm taking it on the road. You get wherever you're going. You fire it up, it's going, oh, I need to update because these updates know that they're out of date. How do they know that? Or are the updates a way to keep track of that computer to slowly walk it down the aisle? In other words, are you really safe once you get on the internet?
There was a time where you had to get a warrant to tap a phone.
Not anymore.
You don't really need that anymore. I mean, literally, they can access your computer. You'll think the damn thing's off, and it's not.
Have you ever done something that you've researched something for whatever reason, whatever the thing is, and you're going, boy, people might get the wrong idea if they ever found that out. Well, I'm going to delete all these, I'm going to delete everything I saw, the history.
Sure.
It's not gone.
No.
It's out there somewhere. There's a footprint, and it's been recorded in perpetuity.
People think
there
that
forever.
People think when they delete a file, delete a message in their computer, that it's gone. But you can get a guy who knows computers who can go in and restructure. He put it back together again, and determine what you deleted. It's not hard. In some ways, when you delete something, it's just a matter of them taking one character out of the what do you call it? The formula of that message, and, and a good expert can go in there and put it all back together again. It doesn't erase it.
Unless it's a Hillary computer, and then it's bleach-bitted and hammered and sledge-hammered.
She uses that hammer. Yeah, that's the old school way of fixing your computer.
Well, it does work, though. There's some truth to that, so I'll give her that one.
Anyway, another news today. Elon Musk, do you hear this? He fired a warning shot at rhinos in the Senate. There are a number of them who think that they're above and beyond the mandate of the people. Elon Musk said whoever thwarts the will of the people will lose either their primary or the midterm election. And he doesn't make idle threats, because what he has is financial resources to put the weight of a lot of his enterprise behind doing just that. If you're a rhino and you're causing a problem, he can just put a lot of money into getting rid of you.
But he's got to be careful at what and how he says that, too, because people could take that and twist it. Because, you look at the other side of the coin. Soros is, they can't beat by money, but by everything. Of course, the will of the people spoke. And the one thing that he said that's paramount there, the will of the people, because, we know when we're being hoodwinked. And Soros.
Over the past few years, I've started to believe that when you are as filthy rich as some of these guys are, that they are literally above the rules that we live by, meaning the George Soroses of the world. I have seen him, what appears to be his influence and his unlawful, work. I've seen that over the past few years, and it doesn't matter to anybody. Nobody's gone after him. There's been no charges against him. The guy has inserted guys who really are not qualified to be DAs in these different areas, and judges, and in some cases politicians. I mean, you must see for yourself when you watch some of these people talk in interviews on television, some of these leftist liberal politicians. With all due respect, they're as dumb as a box of rocks. I mean, they have no substance to them. They can't even put a sentence together without it sounding awkward, And then you find out that they were backed by a Soros organization. They put these people in place not because they're qualified, but because they can be manipulated. They can be controlled, and that's what, look at, with all due respect, look at Biden. Mm-hmm. For 4 years, the guy walked around in a cloud, and people were talking about him. It was a joke. He was just confused and befuddled and bewildered, right? And the fact is, he didn't get removed. So somebody was pulling the strings from behind the stage, behind the screen, that we don't see. People say, well, it probably was Obama. I think there's somebody deeper than Obama. I think Obama is surface level. I think there's somebody below him who is really messing with us, And that's the people that I would fear. Eric Prince, when he talked in the longer interview, he said, I really worry for the president. He said these next 53 days, they are the most dangerous time for this president. The most dangerous time. That's probably why we haven't seen much of President Trump since the election. He's kind of pulled back into a shell because they realize that he's vulnerable right now. He said, if I were him, I would hire a secondary unit of consisting mainly of SEALs and Special Forces people. He said, because you want to be protected by those who normally hunt. You want to be protected by people who can think like the guy who's trying to kill you and thwart that person, to stop that person from doing that, And I'm hoping that Trump has done just that, but we don't know. He said because, it's not just the guy who has the rifle who is 150 yards away you have to worry about. You really have to worry about the guy who has the drone who can fly it from 15 miles away.
Right.
And
so it's a hunter be hunted world is what you're trying to say.
Exactly. Hunter be hunted world. Exactly right. I don't know. I don't know how President Trump, even things like as simple as the inauguration, are going to be dangerous. Just look at the cabinet he put into place. Mm-hmm. He showed his hand. He said to all of America, everybody that I'm appointing is going to be doing my bidding. They're going to be doing what we said we promised to do. We're going to flip this world around. We're going to make it safe. We're going to make it a world of peace, and we're going to get rid of the deep state. So that says to the deep state, we're at war with this guy Trump, and we can't let him be president. And that's where we're at right now. There are people actively right now, I'm sure, on this day, who are trying to figure out a way of removing him from the political landscape forever because he's threatening their power structure. Not so much money. I think all these guys are rich. But and Bill, I never realized that power must be an incredible intoxicant for these people. You know, to be able to run the world the way they want to run the world. You know?
Well, you know, we went through an industrial revolution, and we've got people that made money from it and still make money from it. And we're kind of on the cusp of that right now, going through a big transition, AI, computers, everything, the way that we travel, space, everything out there is on the table. And, you know, how important was it for the Democrats to hold power to do their agendas and everything? That was very important. When you consider Trump, when he takes over, he's going to have control, and he's going to revert things on the right path, but he's going to have until virtually 2030, 2029 is when the new person after him will take over. They run in 2028, and then boom. And if Vance or his team progresses forward, which it probably should, for another 4-year term, it'd be 2035. We are set up, if we don't lose it, to make a difference and control the next, the remainder of this century, for the next 50 years. What happens in the next 4 years, the next 10 years, will carry through to, 2020, 2025.
You got to hope. I was listening to Kristen Welker interviewing Adam Schiff.
Right.
Adam Schiff. He's the new senator-elect from California.
Yeah.
And boy, when you hear Kristen Welker talk to Adam Schiff, she is just so happy to be sitting in the same room with this guy. Mind you, when President Trump was sitting across from her, she looked like she was smelling something bad, But when
her upper lip, yeah.
Yeah, but when Adam Schiff was there, she was so unctuous. And she asked him all these questions. And, Schiff talks, when you hear what he's talking about, essentially, I'm going to boil it down for you. It's about a 4-minute piece, but he's talking about things. He thinks that certain choices made by Trump as far as nominees for the cabinet are concerned are really wrong and reckless. He'll say that. Mind you, these are people who probably are going to be looking at him and possibly indicting him for all sorts of stuff. But then he says something that I thought was interesting. He has no problem with Marco Rubio, which I thought, I don't know.
I saw that.
Being endorsed by Adam Schiff, it makes me think twice about Marco Rubio. Anyway, here's how the interview went. Listen.
Joining me now is Democratic Senator-elect Adam Schiff of California. Senator-elect Schiff, welcome back to Meet the Press. Congratulations.
Thank you. Great to be with you.
Yeah, great to have you here. Let's start off by talking about Matt Gaetz. You just heard me talking with Senator Schmidt about this. He's obviously no longer in contention to be Attorney General, but there's still this report swirling around him. The House investigation, the House Ethics Committee has launched this investigation. Details of it started to leak out this week to some members on Capitol Hill. But do you think that report should be made public?
I do think it should be made public. I don't think that when someone decides to avoid the public accountability, they simply leave Congress and make it all go away. The taxpayers paid for that analysis and that report. I think they have a right to see it.
Do you think it will be made public? Do you have any indication?
I don't know. It seems like on a party line basis, Republicans are saying, no, the public has no right to see this, and what's more, we don't want the public to see this. But it underscores to me why the president's lack of background checks for his nominees is flawed. He may have still decided to nominate Matt Gaetz, but if they did a thorough vetting, he may have decided not to. That vetting process, having the FBI review potential nominees, it's not only to protect the public interest, it's to protect the president-elect's interest, to make sure that he's not embarrassed by nominating someone like Matt Gaetz. So I think it shows a flaw in the process that he even got nominated. And, perhaps with respect to Hegseth as well, had a thorough investigation been done, it might have influenced the president-elect's decision to nominate him in the first place.
Let me ask you big pictures. Obviously, President-elect Trump has now said he wants to pick Pam Bondi to serve as his attorney general. swept the battleground states. He won the popular vote. Republicans have control of the House and of the Senate. Do you think that the president-elect should have his picks confirmed?
Well, I think the president has a right to nominate anyone who's qualified, who has good judgment and good character. It doesn't mean he's guaranteed Senate approval of whoever he nominates, and some of these nominees are deeply problematic. I'll be interested in the confirmation process. Will Pam Bondi continue to tell the big lie even under oath? Is she going to continue to say that the Justice Department should be prosecuting prosecutors who brought valid evidence before a grand jury found probable cause to believe Donald Trump committed crimes? That's not a basis to go after them. So she's going to have to answer tough questions. Tulsi Gabbard concerns me a great deal, that someone who has echoed Kremlin talking points, someone who has appeared to make common cause with someone like Bashar al-Assad, who gasses his own people, someone who has no experience whatsoever, not even on the Intelligence Committee in the Congress, should be running those agencies. So they're going to have tough questions to answer.
Senator-elect Schiff, is there anyone on this list who at this very moment you think you could vote yes on? You could support?
Well, for example, I think Marco Rubio is enormously well qualified for the job for which he's been nominated. I still want to ask questions. I'm not going to completely prejudge even him, but he's unquestionably qualified, and there are others as well. But some really stand out for the risk they would present to the American people.
I can't play any more of that. I have another minute of that, but he's such an unctuous liar. This guy is just unbelievable.
He actually didn't say he would vote for Marco. He just kind of gave him a pass of saying, he's a well-credited guy, but I still have some questions. And they talk about they don't have the background. I would recommend to Adam that when he got into government, he had no experience too. So there's a lot of different things you can unpeel.
Pam
all the layers
Bondi's
of
got
that onion.
8 years of being the Florida Attorney General. 8 years of being the Attorney General of Florida. I think that's a pretty decent period of experience for her. Kash Patel, one of the nominees that I'm sure. Well,
he wants that job.
He's not a nominee yet, but I think he's going to be the FBI.
He wants the job. Yeah, he wants that job.
Anyway, he was talking with Maria Bartiromo yesterday. Listen to what he had to say.
Fortunately, the public has also lost trust in a number of these agencies. Kash, how do you believe Americans will regain trust in our most important law enforcement agencies?
One thing. Exposure of corruption. Put out the documents, put out the evidence. We only have gotten halfway down the Russiagate hole. The people need to know that their FBI is restored by knowing full well what they did to unlawfully surveil them. The people need to know that there has been a de-weaponization, a defanging of the Department of Justice, and their houses of worship will no longer be raided. But they need to be shown the documents that said this was the reasoning they weaponized justice. And that, in my opinion, is how Congress can most importantly secure the trust or resecure the trust of these agencies and departments. President Trump is taking a huge first step with his monumental victory. Now it's up to Congress and the Senate to work with his leaders at DOJ and FBI to put out those documents. And I think DOJ goes a long way in that, but we're going to need cabinet secretaries who say, we don't fear the corruption that preceded us. It will make us powerful if we expose it to the American public.
Trust me, he is feared by the left because he's saying all the things that we want him to say. The people on the right want him to say. And the mandate is huge. He's talking about going after people who have caused a problem and also letting the world why they're being prosecuted. He show everything, show the evidence, let the people see why you're going after these. What do they say? Sunshine is the best form of disinfectant. The other person, Bill, that I cannot get over them going after, and they're doing it now a lot, is a former Democratic darling, Tulsi Gabbard, who left.
Yeah, I wondered about that too. What is their fear? Does she know something on their side that they are so worried about that they're willing to? Well, it's the Russiagate all over. The thing that they charge everybody with is always the same.
Yeah.
Have you ever noticed that everybody's guilty of the same thing?
Megyn Kelly.
I find it odd.
Megyn Kelly has an explanation of why she thinks that Tulsi's being targeted.
This was started by Hillary Clinton.
Why?
She started the Tulsi because Tulsi was a rising star within Democratic politics. She had all the boxes checked. She was a woman. She was a minority. She was the first this and the first that. And she was a combat vet. Beautiful, well-spoken, like amazing. And then she started to be kind of open-minded to what Bernie Sanders was saying, and maybe had some problems with the Hillary Clinton messaging and having Hillary shoved down our throat as the Democratic nominee back in 2016.
Yes.
And spoke up about it and started to make enemies in the party because of that. And then was outraged when she found out the DNC cheated on behalf of Hillary to try to make sure she got the nomination and screwed Bernie. And she was angry, and a rift was formed. Then Hillary Clinton called her a Russian asset, just like Hillary Clinton's campaign was the one that made up that Donald Trump was a Russian asset.
Dossier, the Russia hoax.
Her campaign made up all the stuff about there being a server in Trump Tower, and Don Jr. was using it to communicate. Those were lies made up by the Clinton campaign. Hillary Clinton absolutely loved making up lies in her campaign about the Russians interfering against anybody who she didn't like or wanted to undermine. Tulsi was just one of them. Then Tulsi, an independent thinker, quite obviously, winds up leaving the party. And then she says, this war that is going on between Russia and Ukraine didn't have to happen. If we had just listened for a minute to what Putin was saying about how it was genuinely important to him that Ukraine not be that NATO not be expanded by allowing Ukraine potentially to join it, this whole thing could potentially have been avoided. And was it really so important to us that we not say that? Couldn't we have said that? Couldn't we have listened to him? The other major nuclear power in the world, maybe that was worth more than a day's worth of thought. That is really what is used against her. If you go back and you look at why is she a Russian asset?
Okay.
That's it. The made up Hillary Clinton stuff, this, and then she met with Bashar al-Assad, an enemy by far, sure, it's no question. And so they say, she's got I guess she's getting her marching orders from Assad.
Okay.
Putin. I mean, Trump himself decided to open up negotiations with Kim Jong-un. I mean,
Which
than
makes
Bashar al-Assad.
Perfect sense to me, because what are you going to do? Diplomacy means you talk to your enemies. Isn't that more important than talking to your allies?
Nancy Pelosi, about a year and a half ago, was in an interview, and she was actually bragging about how they sell a lie, how they sell it, and they actually have a term for it. It's called the wrap-up smear. The wrap-up smear is what they call it. They create a lie about somebody, and then they smear them with it constantly. They sell that smear. They did it to Matt Gaetz. Now, you may say, well, Matt Gaetz had a liaison. Listen, they took a guy who was a sitting congressman for years and had no problem, and they decided he's getting too big for his britches. He got rid of the Speaker of the House, and that didn't go over well with a lot of people on both sides of the aisle. So they figured they'd start this investigation in the House about his sexual dalliances, right? Which were already proven by the Department of Justice to be a lie. And so that was the wrap-up smear that Nancy Pelosi bragged about in this interview. They have a term for this. They will take somebody. They're going to go after. They're going to go after Tulsi. They're going to go after Pete Hegseth. You know that. I mean, God, he's a good-looking, handsome guy with a real alpha male resume.
They're already doing it.
Yep. And
they're already doing it. This is why we need, and Trump said he's going to do it, term limits. It's time. There's term, because otherwise you get these clans in there. And you can't convince me that people are so stupid that they will sit there from dusk to dawn of the person's life, that they will keep that person in power in office. It just doesn't happen that way. You're defying the laws of logic here. I don't think that we've had the people's choice in D.C. in quite some time.
Oh, I think you're absolutely correct. You know what? They're very afraid of Pam Bondi. If you see Pam Bondi, she looks like everybody's granddaughter or daughter. I mean, nice blonde hair, a pleasant smile, but she's a pit bull. She is a pit bull. Case in point, during the Jeffrey Epstein, I guess it was Ghislaine Maxwell case, when she was in court, she was interviewed on Fox about the case, and I want you to hear how she's talking about justice. And this will give you an idea of why they are a little concerned with her nomination. Listen.
I want to know why AG Garland and the Justice Department are so quiet on this tonight. They're out there labeling parents domestic terrorists, yet they're saying nothing about this. And these documents were so slow to come out. Human trafficking is a multi-billion-dollar business in this country, and Jeffrey Epstein is dead, and Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison for 20 years where she belongs. And if people in that report are still fighting to keep their names private, Sean, they have no legal basis to do so unless they're a child, a victim, or a cooperating defendant by some chance against some potential case against Ghislaine Maxwell. And I think Mark Garagos, as a great criminal defense attorney, will back that up as well.
Okay, so let's say hypothetically you have something to hide. Maybe you are a regular at Epstein Island. You're on that list,
All right.
Would you feel comfortable knowing that lady is going to be the next attorney general, and she may be turning her focus on that list and your name?
Probably not.
No, I don't think so. Anyway, they're going to be throwing so much nonsense at these nominees. I beg of our audience to be very careful what you believe, all right? For example, even I was kind of shocked at some of the Matt Gaetz stuff they were throwing out there. And then I stopped for a second, and I thought, wait a second. Wait, hold it. Pull over. I like Matt Gaetz. Have liked him for years. All of a sudden, who are we believing? The media? The same people who've lied about Trump and so many other things over the past few years? You cannot take everything they say as being gospel, Bill.
I know that for a fact. I sent you a story over the weekend. It's too complicated and long to try to explain. It's just one of those things you got to read, and you're like going, and you think, well, that was the shoe that fell, and here comes another shoe, and the next shoe keeps on falling. This thing has got so much intrigue and just twists and turns, and it's not a dirty story about him. It's what is out there, and they don't want him. They don't want him to be ahead of something because it goes back to the Clintons and Hillary and Bill, and it goes all the way through. Just a sea of corruption that he is sitting on the pinnacle of. That he can sit there and be the key to unravel it.
At the top of the show, we were talking about. There was a word from, I guess, Caroline Leavitt that they wouldn't do a blanket amnesty on the January 6ers. And as we were talking just now, it occurred to me, why in the name of God would President Trump announce he's going to do a blanket amnesty now anyway? He's got 53 more days ahead of him. It would cause a firestorm of debate and problems that he
distractions.
Yeah, exactly. He can do anything he wants on January 6th or January 20th, 2026 or 2025. I get my all these years run together.
Time flies.
Yes,
and,
when you're having
time
fun.
Flies.
But the thing is, I would, if I were him, I would push those possible distractions aside too. Anyway, I'm looking at the clock on the wall. One other thing, this mayor of Denver came out and he said, "I'm not going to let the administration and Trump come into my city and take illegals out of my town. I don't care who they are." Rand Paul had a response for that mayor, and I thought it was interesting. Listen.
The mayor of Denver, if he's going to resist federal law, which there's a long-standing history of the supremacy of federal law, if he's going to resist that, it will go all the way to the Supreme Court. And I would suspect that he would be removed from office. I don't know whether or not there'd be a criminal prosecution for someone resisting federal law, but he will lose. And people need to realize that what he is offering is a form of insurrection where the states resist the federal government. Most people objected to that and rejected that long ago. So I think the mayor of Denver is on the wrong side of history, and really, I think will face legal ramifications if he doesn't obey the federal law.
Bill, I don't understand how these mayors of these cities and these governors of these states, Democrats all, who they're saying they're defending these illegals, and they talk about them like they're citizens of their state. You know, all they are right now are a tax burden on the real hardworking taxpayers of their communities.
Well, I think they're part of a plan for a new world order and a new government, and that new government doesn't include you or me or the Constitution or what we call the United States of America. They want to dismantle it. And, you know, there's probably there's a lot of other powers out there that would love to see the United States crumble. And I guess, you know, history has prevailed because we have been victors, that we've written history in our favor. But we may not have always been, and we may not be the good guys. We are definitely not perceived that way by other places. So that's why, you know, a lot of these immigrants are coming in here. They're not coming in here because they wanted to aspire to be here and be like us. They came in here without adopting our values, with hopes that, yeah, they'll change it to something. What it is, I don't know.
You know,
or what they've been promised.
A lot of people haven't talked about this, but over the weekend, the head of NATO came to Mar-a-Lago to have a meeting with President Trump. Very little. I saw very little about it on the news, and I thought, but that's really interesting. I wouldn't be surprised if he had some very interesting suggestions. He may have told NATO to step down with this missile launching stuff. You know, I'm going to be president in 50 days, and you won't like it if you keep going against the will of the people of this country, you know? And so and again, I saw very little about it. And someone said, you know, I think it was Eric Prince who said, I'd like to see President Trump talking with Putin, but based upon what happened to him in the first administration, the Russia stuff, I'm sure he's very hesitant about doing any backdoor conversations with President Putin. But, you know, the difference is now he's got a Republican Senate and a Republican Congress on his side.
But, you know, you have a lot of, I don't know what you want to call them, a Washington folk there that they're fighting the transfer of power. They don't want to cooperate in anything that's happened with JFK, you know, needing certain things because he wants to get to work now. No, can't have it. They're doing this. They're fighting tooth and nail. Elizabeth Warren, who I guess is heading up the Federal Reserve, hands off, it's mine. You know, little Lizzie Borden there wants to hatchet that up pretty good. Well, you know what? It's a new day is dawning, Lizzie, and you know what? It is not hands off. It is.
She's really an empty vessel. All she does. How would you like to wake up with
next to her? No way in hell.
Oh my God! You know, she'd be complaining about everything. I'm sure she would feel the same way about me.
I tell her, you want to know something that really gripes me? That you really, if you want to complain about something, go look in the mirror.
Hey, another interesting thing: President Trump said on day one he's going to remove transgender service members from the military. Well, good for him. I mean, I first thing I thought of was, you know, Bill, we've said it so many times before in this program. The military is designed to break things and kill bad guys, you know?
Look, you are stationed somewhere that's not going to be a great place to be. You're there to do one thing. You're there to fight a war. Who do you want to be in the foxhole with? Another comrade in arms like you that, we got to go get this done. Or some guy going, what do you think? You know, don't I look good in the skirt here? And look at this frilly little thing that I got on here.
You like the color of this lipstick?
Why don't you go show it to the guys we're fighting?
Well, you know, the other thing is this,
stop them.
Does anybody talk about accommodations that have to be made for these people? I mean, if you say you're a transgender, do they put you in with the women? Or do they or they leave you with the men, or do they have to make special accommodations for transgenders?
Let's go back to Adam Schiff. And, he was going, well, he's making choices here that have got to be questioned. Did you not question the choices that the Biden administration was making, Pelosi and your fellow Democrats? And by the way, did you not sit there and write a piece that was all fiction?
Oh, yeah.
And it was used in January 6th.
And he was caught. And he was caught.
And he acts like he's such a saint. I'm sorry, but
I know.
There's still time to account for that. We need to. I'm glad you got elected to the Senate. I hope you get to keep your seat because you should be investigated, Adam.
Hey, before we wrap this thing up, a reminder to stop by rightsideshop.com. Rightsideshop.com, if you would, please. And check out the stuff we're selling there, including our Jim and Bill's Right Side Coffee.
Wake up on the right side with Right Side Coffee.
Medium roast and medium decaf roast. Really tasty coffee. And when you buy stuff in the Right Side Shop, it helps us to grow the show. We're trying, and so a lot of good Christmas gifts there, too. So if you would, rightsideshop.com. And I'm just about done, Bill. Anything you want to add today?
No, look, it's been an interesting day for me. I was on the road yesterday, and I'm here today, and nothing technically worked. It did last night. I fired everything up. Said, we're beautiful. It's great. This morning, it's giving me the golden raspberry. So
yeah, but we got through. We made it.
We made it.
Much to the chagrin of some other people out there, who I'm sure are not big fans of the program. But
they can do whatever.
Yeah. Hey, listen, that's about it. Again, check out rightsideshop.com, and I'm done.
You're done?
I'm done.
Well, in that case, I only got one thing to say, and that's hasta la vista, baby. We're out of here.
This is CRN America.